Welcome back, everybody. Midweek meta. As you can just see from that fun animation there, we got a fun episode, you guys. You got all three of us at Turning Point Meta. You got me, the host of Midweek Meta. I got my lovely co-host Chris here,
Yep. Hey, what's going on, guys?
and we got this weirdo here that's kind of just like playing those things that we don't talk about. But
That's
hey,
me.
it's Nate, you guys. That's our one and only lovable Nate. You guys, we got some questions. I've been talking to some people. They want our insights on some meta stuff. So me and Chris got the schedule with Nate, and we're gonna talk about 5 questions. I'm gonna kind of not moderate between the two of them, but just gonna kind of give our quick opinions. But you guys, welcome to Midweek Meta. First off, let's talk real quick. How's everybody doing? What's going on? What's new?
Not much going on with me.
Okay, what about Dex? Okay, well, yeah, I need your life story. Like, so
No. I know.
That French draining. How's that door pinch? Is that good?
Oh, dude, the flooring in my kitchen's still half done. Oh, it's been a nightmare. No. As far as decks are concerned, right now I've been trying to kind of focus on having something that's considered quote unquote meta. And at the same time, also having like one or two of my fringe decks, because I'll never get rid of my fringe.
Sure.
You can't make me. You never will. You'll never make me get rid of my fringe.
Well, so I'm gonna say right now, a good fringe deck is great because it's really the pilot that makes it worth it.
Sure.
Because like I hate to say it, there's so many decks like, oh, it's fringe, and you play against, you're like, okay, I know it's fringe, but like there's no interaction, there's no nothing. But when you say it's fringe, I'm like, oh, okay, so he's gonna have some like 18 card combo that like wins out of nowhere, and I gotta save these 6 pieces.
Hey, it's what I do. It's what I like to do. But yeah, other than that, as far as my deck building goes, I've just been kind of looking into older decks that used to be around before like Dockside and Jewel Lotus were really a thing. I've just kind of been digging into those things. Haven't been really building them, but I've been checking out Discords and other places you can find these decks and these old style things just to kind of put my feelers out there and see what's kind of going on and see if either A, I can come up with something of my own, or B, find something that was maybe old that doesn't see much play anymore and see if I can maybe bring it back to some degree. So that's been my thing. So
Okay.
All right, awesome, man. That's great. Chris, anything new from you? Any weird change? I know last time we talked, you're on the Malcolm.
Yep. Malcolm seems really good. Trying to still suss it out from here or there. Do I play green? Do I play black over blue red? Like I was saying last episode, Grixis Pie just feels so good. It just clean win cons. I'm very used to it playing blue farm beforehand. Not playing Magda as much, just trying to explore some different avenues, looking at Blood Pod currently just because the Balloon Man just seems so much fun. An extra Kiki Jiki if you have like a Birds of Paradise out is just insane. I'm just like, cool. So there's been a couple different updates with that. And I don't know what my third deck is, but it's definitely Magda, Malcolm, and then we'll figure out the last one eventually. Trying to try out some things that aren't seen. And I definitely enjoy stacks, and I enjoy that difficult game, similar to Nate with like Tameshi and things like that. Just intricate decks.
Yeah. Dude, that's awesome. I gotta say, when you say the Grixis Pie thing, I just gotta imagine. I've so many games I've walked up behind you because I'm done with my game, or I'm the one that's set out, and you have this win con in hand, and I feel like just like I hate to say it, I feel like you're Jafar, and I'm just the parrot just sitting on your shoulder, like, yes, keep going, win, show them the fear of Grixis.
Yes.
And you're like, and they're like, oh, counter that, and you're like, and you're like, oh no, stop. And Nate's laughing here because he's seen it, and people don't respect it. I'm gonna say, Chris said the three you got. You're looking at, what are you thinking your meta deck will be, Nate?
yeah, so I think I'll probably end up going back to Kinnan. Kinnan was a list that I Really enjoyed. In my personal experience, I believe that I was a pretty decent pilot with Kinnan.
Yep.
I don't. I feel like people try to play him kind of like a turbo-ish deck, and he's just not really meant to be played that way. And I really leaned in on the fact that my game plan was to slow people down. It was to hold them back. So probably go back to Kinnan.
It's only 2 mana, and the entire deck just says, "Cool, I'm making a bunch of mana. Kill my Kinnan. I can play it off curve and not make myself a target. Cool, play Kinnan, spin Kinnan. Hopefully we hit something. We'll see." So it's a great deck. So that's gonna be your main one, and then what are your other 2 that you're trying to play?
Yeah, so the other one that I'm going to be picking up, because Kinnan's obviously going to be a slower deck, and then the other slower deck that I'm going to be playing is Tameshi.
Yeah.
So Tameshi, I've talked about it on the channel a couple of times. It's this weird enchantment artifact bring back deck. It's complicated for people that don't know it or haven't read the primer on it. It's an artifact and enchantment based deck, and so obviously for people that
but Dockside, dog.
Wow, it's like he's gone now, and I don't have to worry about that. So I'm actually retooling it to run things like Sarah's Sanctum and actually up my enchantment count a little bit.
On thin ice?
Run things like maybe run things like on thin ice.
Yep.
I'm going to be running Amphibian Downpour in the deck, I believe.
Ooh.
That card, dude. Me and Bruce were talking about last night, and he's like watching people scramble because they hit them with they think they're set up a creature combo line. You're like, okay, Amphibian Downpour. Your 8 creatures you just put out to win your line just are now raw 0/1s.
Right.
Or
yeah,
1/1s.
yeah,
You're
exactly.
Just
like,
yeah.
And then I'm not getting punished for casting Amphibian Downpour because there's no Dora Dockside, right? So that's another piece that I'm going to be putting in. But that's the other deck that I'm going to be retooling. And then the third deck, some people consider it meta just because it actually does pretty well in tournaments and such. But I'm actually on the fence about it. So I was actually considering Krark and Sakashima as kind of my third deck. Again, not really a fast deck, but I still keep fighting with myself on this Ral deck that I have.
Mm-hmm.
It's meant to win on turn 2 or 3, sometimes even turn 1 if I can get the pieces available to me. And it's just is it Stormless that wins fast? And I still think that Turbo is kind of slanted right now, and maybe we'll get into that a little bit more later.
Sure.
But I'm torn on which is it deck to play, and I'll probably play the both of them here and there until I really either retool Ral to the point where I feel he's really good again. Because Jeweled Lotus and Mana Crypt were the main ones that kind of hit him. He didn't really care too much about Dockside. But the thing that I like about Karkashima is most pilots have decided to take out the whole Displacer Kitten thing with Karkashima now that Dockside's gone, which I personally am okay with because I don't think it really needed it to begin with.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And you were only really using it with Dockside. So those are the 3 that I'm quote unquote 3, maybe 4 that I'm kind of working with right now.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome.
And Maddie, it is your turn to answer these questions.
Right.
What is your meta deck, and then what are your other 2 decks?
Okay, meta deck. It's this weird split. It's Marnia's Kalgor, tokens, or Rocco.
Sure.
Those are kind of my 2. I'm balancing. I weird split. We kind of have this rule between the 3 of us having a meta deck, an okay deck, and then a fringy deck. Well, I'm taking those 2 as my meta deck and my fringy deck. This is what I'm super excited, as you can tell. I love Rocco. I talked about it all the time. I'm building this dungeon deck. Oh, I love this deck. It's Baldur's Gate 3 playing Magic, and I'm like, you're just fun. You're the guys that hang out and watch my stream in a sense. That's why I look at it, and I gotta tool it. I gotta play with it. And if you check out my mock field, you're gonna look at it. You're gonna be like, this isn't CDH because you know why? Because there's gates in it. I'm gonna prove you wrong on November 9th at Salt City's next tournament, you guys. Top 16 with the deck. Here I come.
Okay.
Do it. Prove it to him.
Or I'll bring Rocco and just took the battlefield. I don't know yet. Right. But I'm probably bringing D&D. 99% bringing D&D. You kind of did a great pivot there. We're going to be talking the meta today. We're not talking the whole wide, across the whole world here meta, because I hate to say this, we're dealing with some weird things. Wizards just take the format back over. But we're going to talk about what's going on with our meta, what's going on with the Queen's Realm, or what's going on with our turning point meta, as you like to point it. As you guys, we jump into this. We got 5 questions today. I'm going to ask you both the questions. You gotta give me answers. Then you can ask me the questions. We'll see where we're at with time. But we're going to start with some easy ones first. Nate, you're the guy. You're the guest spot today. Not really guest spot.
To be fair, we had Maddie over on ours, so now it's just the return. So
Yeah, there you go. Think about it that way.
Yeah. It was overdue. Yeah.
It is. It was. But okay. So first question I got to ask today: with what happened to the meta, do you have any decks that you were like, man, I'm so excited to play this, or okay, I'm ready to bring this out to Sunday night, and you're like, oh, banned, shelved, you're done with it. You put it away. It's done, or it's on the back burner. So far, we could be heated in 2028 by it.
Yeah. I feel like I had at least 2 decks that the bans really. It feels like it shot it in the foot. The first deck that comes to mind was was Aranus and Street Urchin. So
Yep.
For those that don't know, with Aranus and Street Urchin, essentially it was a creature-based control deck, essentially, and it used Dockside as a win con. But there was some times where the only reason it was using Dockside was actually just ammunition for your commander, because creature combos were so heavy at the time that it was the absolute answer to it. If anyone wanted to try anything, I was the answer to that. And so I would cast a Dockside and say, cool, I have 15 treasures. This is just bullets for the gun, right? That's all it was. But if I was going for a combo, it was part of a Protean Hulk line and Gruul, which was really cool. It was a really interesting line. And obviously, the commander itself was 3 mana, so Jeweled Lotus was really helpful. It was 2 and a green. And then Mana Crypt sometimes was often just another bullet, because you could sacrifice an artifact or a creature to Aranus's effect, or the Street Urchin's effect, I'm sorry. And so that deck just took a weird hit, and I don't know exactly how it comes back from it. It probably has to go for separate lines now. I haven't really been in the Discord much talking about it, but I'm sure that the people in there that are super dedicated to it are going to find some ways to figure it out. The second deck I would say that I just had to put away was Corvold. That one was probably the one that kind of hurt my soul the most. As far as our play group was concerned, I was the only person who ever played Corvold. And again, I've actually heard that Corvold is actually still doing okay, and it's finding ways and finding lines to actually make things work.
Maybe, yeah.
I think it's leaning more on the food chain style and like Warren Soul Trader type of effects.
Oh yeah, that Warren Soul Trader has. I hate to say it, is the EpiPen of adrenaline to that deck right now, with as Dockside has been pulled out.
Yeah, exactly. And some people are even going for like Gravecrawler style lines in Corvold right now, because like the Soul Trader itself is a zombie, and so you can recast Gravecrawler a ton and draw like 30 cards.
Sure.
Yeah, life, right? So there's really interesting lines that they're taking with it, but man, not being able to get out Corvold early, not having the Dockside for that explosivity that Corvold was just known for, it really hurt that deck. And it's not that I probably won't ever pick it up again. I probably will when it's getting maybe a little bit more fine-tuned. But that was the one that I was like, well, let's just put that one away for a minute. I'll find something else to play for now, but I can't really play that one for the moment.
Chris, I'm gonna toss it over to you. What's your answer to that question? I'll toss it back to you. Did you lose any decks? Did you take any decks that were, oh man, did you guys wait? Oh, okay, that's done. Or any decks that you were like, I'm gonna show Maddie what I've been cooking. I've been cooking this deck.
Right now, it's Blue Farm is kind of my deck where I'm like, I don't know if I want to pick it up again. I don't know if I want to put it, back together. I think it's an incredibly good deck. It has resilient win conditions. Without having green in the current meta, I don't really know how I feel about it. Do you go turbo? Do you play a bunch of Ragavans and things like that to be able to help you get up with like Moxes and whatnot? I'm playing around with it. I probably will put it back together, but it's really one of the decks where I'm like, I don't know how I feel about it. I want to explore green. I think is really what it comes down to. I want to explore green and see where that can go to. Colon Ritual right now is insanely good. So any kind of stack or anything like that, I want to be able to play a lot of 3-mana creatures so they don't die to that kind of effect. So what does that really take? That takes some 1-drops. That takes some elves. That's going to take... There's really no way to like catch up. And green is kind of that catch-up mechanic right now. So anything sans green, I'm not really touching outside of like Magda. So yeah.
Chris, those are some great answers. As we said, we'll jump to me real quick. I'm in a weird spot right now. I was building a stacks deck because we talked about that on one of our first episodes. Is stacks need to come back, and I was going to bring back my creature base, stack base Kadama, Timna, Abzan fun list, and it's without Jeweled Lotus and Mana Crypt. It still works. It's a still functional deck, but
Well,
not
Kadama's
being able
like
to get
6.
Kadama out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's expensive.
And so it's sitting right now on my desk, not shelf, but I have total call out to more of a casual over here. I have a Necrobloom deck. I took a lot of those pieces that are really good in Abzan and put it in that one. And so it might be the borderline casual competitive deck I have now, but that's kind of where I've shelved, and it's sad. I really thought Rocco was going to be the way. I'll be honest with you. There was a slight moment I thought I was shelving Rocco because I was like, Dockside is super key to this deck. What am I going to do? And then, you know what broke me out of that? Playing with you and Nate. I'll be honest with you. It's
okay.
Not having... I had Dockside in the deck already because we were playing with it, but you guys always told me what else can you do without it? What happens to your deck if you get taken? On our last episode, you talked about how Sisay, if you lost a mill in it, what happens?
Yeah.
Well, what happens to Rocco if you lost Dockside? Or what if they come in tapped and you can't use them? It was a very odd, weird what I was going to do. But so far, as we talked earlier, I've got Marius and Rocco, great to go. But I'm going to flip that question now that I've got my decks. Touching to you, Chris, you're going to answer the second one here.
Sure.
What new ideas have you sprung forward off this banning? What deck have you been like, I get to play this now?
I'm looking a little bit into Enchantress right now. I think having a Gaia's Cradle plus a Sarah
Sanctum.
Sarah Sanctum. Yeah. I think that's cool. You basically can go on both sides of that. They're creatures, they're enchantments, they turn them both on. It's just a bunch of mana. The other one would probably be like Elevir, looking into that and seeing how that's going along. I love stacks, and there's a card in Elevir that basically says, cool, you can name instant sorcery, enchantment, or creature, and I always just don't play any sorceries, and those are most of the board wipes. I'm like, cool, no one can play sorceries. Have fun killing me, So, and then you give hexproof to the creatures. It's like, yeah, you're not getting rid of me anytime soon. So, I really enjoy stacks decks if they have a beatdown plan. So those are my two new ideas, mostly green-white, and I'm like, these seem kind of fun, So they've got a lot of legs, and
okay.
Creature-based decks, yeah.
So green-white, I gotta ask that. That just seems super. Nate can agree here. That does not sound like Chris. Am I right here?
No, absolutely not.
No.
That's not Chris's color pie. If it doesn't have red in it, Chris isn't playing it typically.
Right, we talked about this a little off the camera, and he told me that, and I was like, that's green-white, dog. That's Selesnya, white weenies and counters, and
it's so much
what
mana.
Are you doing there, dog?
It's so much mana right now. It's insane.
It is.
Dude, he looks like a kid on Christmas. Oh my! I'm excited. Okay, guys, update this. Note it down. 2 weeks, a month from now, if he's got this deck, we will definitely be talking about this because seeing how excited he is, I feel that way about my dungeon deck.
Yeah.
But hey, how about we turn this over to you, Nate? What do you got? You don't look as excited. Do you not have any crazy decks that you get to play now?
Well, no. So the first thing that came to mind after the bans happened, the first commander that actually came to mind was a deck that I was already building, and that was Zur. So I was building Zur at the time when the bans happened, and at first I was a little upset because I was like, oh man, I lose my Jeweled Lotus. But it's a commander that doesn't really benefit from Jeweled Lotus all that much because it only pays for 2 of it. And the other thing is I could play a slower Zur deck, and again, not be punished for my enchantments that are on the field, not be punished for my Grasp of Fate or my Blind Obedience that's sitting on the battlefield, stopping other things from going off, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, and then on top of that, I also have, there's so many new tools for Zur. There's like, you have Delny now that like triggers Zur twice, which is insane. You have gosh, what is it? There's like different copy enchantment effects. So you can have like 2 or 3 Rhystic studies on the field, which is hilarious. Because sure, paying for 1 Rhystic study, awesome. Paying for 3, good luck. It's not going to happen.
Steel enchantment as well, very good. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then on top of that, you can also go for like turbo style wins with like Angel's Grace ad nauseum. So there's just axes that it has that it could turn on. And again, because Dockside is gone, we can, and Jewel Lotus and Mana Crypt, things are a little bit slower, I feel. And again, another thing we'll talk about, but it had those pivot points, and it had the ability to, okay, you know what? Things aren't going my way right now. I'm going to go ahead and Grasp of Fate, steal a couple things because I don't want these on the board right now. Let's play this out a little bit slower. The other deck that I decided to do the exact opposite because it's meant to be a turbo deck, and it was Old Spice, is Ukima and Kazur.
Yeah.
So Ukima and Kazur, for those that have not been around very long, have probably never heard of this partner pair. That's okay. I'm not offended. It's not it wasn't exactly a deck that was played very much. And so it's Sultai, and its main win con is Food Chain. But because you're in a black deck, you can also run Ad Nauseam and Thassa's Oracle Demonic Consultation. But on the flip side, if things are slow and you have both your commanders out, you have an unblockable commander who keeps getting bigger. It keeps becoming more of a problem.
Okay.
And if he's bounced or if he's destroyed, I can do a ton of damage to someone if that's the case that it gets to, right? Obviously, that's not the main point you're leaning on. You're probably in a rough spot if you're doing that. But you can. And it has come up when the game was like totally stacked out, and all I'm doing is swinging in with an Ukima, just growing him turn after turn to the point where he's almost going to do commander damage, right? Which is not something you typically see.
No.
But I think, like how with what Chris said, Culling the Ritual is such a powerful effect right now.
Yep.
And I think green can really be leaned into, especially with like your Veil of Summers and your Autumn's Veil as being making your stuff basically uncounterable
Silence
for a turn.
effects, essentially, in green.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
It makes it a pretty powerful commander pairing, I think. And like I said, it used to be Old Spice. People used to play it back in the day, but then it just got beaten out because things were just so much faster that it couldn't keep up.
Yeah, it was the Food Chain deck for so long, and then you got like Atraxa and other decks that took over the Food Chain slot. But no, I watched over your shoulder last night while you were playing it, and I was like, that's gross. Ew. And I was like, oh. And so I'm excited to see if you keep running that deck, and it's definitely cool to see that spice come out. And I have to say, I have to go off what you just said. It's without Dockside there, you get to play these cards that you could never play. Like, you couldn't play all these hard stacks pieces, these enchantments that are rules of laws, because, yeah, you were feeding Dockside. You couldn't run these artifacts. And that's why I'm such a hard spot with that deck. I want to pull it out because I can run all those enchantments again. That Azman stack deck. So that's kind of my weird, like, deck I might be bringing back, but slotted. That's why I said it was a weird, because it answers both questions there. Because I want to play it, but I don't want to. It's not a spot I can play it yet. I got to tune it more. But my big focus, which I'm going to answer question number 3 here first here. What new deck do you have, or what new spice you like? What new deck have you you took in you've talked about Kinnan before, but now with Dockside gone, you get to drop out some of your null rod pieces, some of your pieces like that. Well, my spice here, I get to play dungeons. I'm gonna make this deck work, and I'm gonna talk about it anytime I can now, because you guys help encourage us too, but I believe I can make this deck work because the way the format has gone, we're gonna be able to play in a way that slower plays and actually take the turn 3 steps ahead in reality now. What are you doing turn 7, 8 now instead of turn 4 and 5? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And I think that deck can get there. But with the actual question, now I'm going to ask you, Chris, what new idea, what new spice now do you get to add to Magda, or now that you got to take out because of the bans in Magda or your other main decks that you have that you like to talk about?
Magda's changed a little bit. Before it was pretty heavy on the stacks. A lot of the pieces got removed because now we don't need Dockside. A lot of the clones got removed. I was talking about it earlier, either this episode or last. Academy Manufacturer is insanely good. Yeah, I didn't understand how it first worked. I thought if you had two of them, they just go infinite. No, but yes, but no. If you're able to get two of them and then go and search and be able to get a certain item in the deck, then essentially you can semi-go infinite with it. I just don't understand the line. And the biggest thing with like a new meta is like trying to understand new cards and how they work. And sometimes we think that we know how they work, and that's why we got to play test and figure these out. So that way, whenever we get to the actual tables for a tournament, we know what's going on. So not too much out of my other decks have really changed too much, but Magda's kind of adapted a little bit. It doesn't feel as lockout, tag out as it's been in the past, where I can control the game. Now it just feels different. Before it was a very dominant position, and now Blood Moon is like its best piece going forward. For like new ideas, I was definitely looking into Malcolm Kedis and going Blue Moon.
All right.
So,
Speaking of that, Blue Moon, jumping off Nate, have you thought of doing Blue Moon with your Ral or Croc Shakashima deck? Are they looking at that at all?
Not Blue Moon. There have been some pilots that have considered running like actual Blood Moon or Magus of the Moon in those decks because they lean very, very heavy red. And we run things like Strike It Rich and Tavern Scoundrel, things that like make a lot of treasure on their own without Dockside. You don't need it. So there have been some people that have considered it in those kinds of decks because we lean heavy on red, and then the treasures is what makes us the color. And honestly, because you're in 2-color decks, we can afford to run a couple extra basics if we really needed to.
Nice. Sounds like. So you said no to any other decks you made. What about you, Nate? Is there any decks that you have now you're like, oh man, I gotta run this spice now because I don't have to run these 6 pieces stopping Dockside coming out?
A lot of my green-based decks, not Kinnan necessarily, but a lot of my green-based decks have been leaning into the enchantment land effects more. I've been really liking, like for instance, I've considered trying to bring back Paco and Halden. And so I've really liked the Utopia Sprawls, and the Fertile Ground is a less common one, but I think it could see play. And Wild Growth effects. I think the other thing that I've been actually really enjoying not seeing and being able to, I actually took out 2 of them from Kinnan, is clones.
Yep.
I'm so happy I don't have to play clones. Honest to God. Like, I can still play clones, and I still play like Phyrexian Metamorph and Clever Impersonator inside of Kinnan. But Phyrexian Metamorph, if I cast it, can be a 1-ring, or it can be the best creature on the field. And Clever Impersonator can be the 1-ring. It could be the best creature on the board. It could be a Ristic Study. It could be anything it wants because it's a non-land permanent. So those clones I still run, but like the Fimage, the Mockingbird in some decks,
the Flesh Duplicate.
A lot of those. Yeah, the Flesh Duplicate. Like, don't get me wrong. I think there are some decks that probably still want those clones, but like, I think you need to be a little bit more specific now. But for me, I'm actually happy that I don't feel like I have to play those clones anymore, because I'm like, well, if I have a clone and it hits Dockside, that's my ticket. I don't want that.
Absolutely. That makes sense.
So I'm actually happy that I can do that. I actually consider replacing them for things like Sylvan Caryatid or something like Fanatic of Ronus. That's like the 1 and a green one. That's like one. It's a 1/4, and if there's a 4-power creature on the board, it makes 4 green rather than.
Oh,
1.
John was telling me about this card. John put it in his on-map deck, and that thing is just always generating 4 mana with that deck.
Right.
And I was like, dang, okay.
In Kinnan it might be a little bit weird, so that's why I'm not 100% convinced on it quite yet.
Okay.
But I think it's just being able to play those kinds of mana dorks that are like, hey, go ahead, put out your Bowmaster. I don't care, because that's your like next problem when you run mana dork decks. But if you can pump them, or you can have mana dorks that are just bigger, I think it's nice to have those, and so that's why I took out for a couple of my clones. So
okay, nice. That makes sense. Well, it's awesome to see that you're able to tune up these decks in ways that you're able to play with the format and how it's going. Well, I've asked some easy questions to both you guys. I think they're easier questions. We're gonna get some harder questions that I've worked with some people on. So the first one: how are your games going? How is the meta looking? How are we? Are we going to time? Are we getting clear wins? I don't mean this mean to people, but how often do you see a win where it's kind of convoluted or it's not clean? It's not, and that happens. That does happen. Sometimes you have to take a 35-minute turn to win, but don't do it every turn. Don't do it every game. How do you think the games are going? Chris, I'm going to toss you first here. How are your games going?
So currently, it seems like I'm playing police a lot of the times.
Okay.
Nothing against anybody. Would love to see more people bring up their free spells and things like that. We got some new people, completely understandable. I feel like I'm playing police a lot. I think that my wins are very clean, and when I'm presenting a win, I'm probably presenting a win or two, so I don't really need to do with it. That's one reason why I'm kind of looking into non-blue decks. I'm like, I'm kind of tired of being police.
No, that's totally fair. With the playing police, do you think it's able to take it to time games, or is it playing to police because imaginary pod? We have a fourth here. Nate blew all his interactions stopping me, but now you got to stop player 3 and Nate because I'm like, I don't got anything. You know what I mean?
I think it's just the meta. And like I
Okay.
said, we are very inclusive and we want newer players to come and play for sure. It's just when you don't have many free spells, it definitely hurts. It definitely hurts. Or tutors.
Oh.
Tutors is another big thing. Like you can get a Ristic down and draw a bunch of cards. Like, cool. I'm going to have tutors as well, which is very important. Green, white, black, it doesn't matter. Red, I mean, there's gamble, for goodness sakes. Being able to, like, go and get some interaction if it's a stacks piece that actually hits all the table. So I definitely want to work with some of the newer players and say, hey, how can we up the game but also keep what you want to do with the deck with the deck as much as possible?
Oh, absolutely.
So I am enjoying a slightly longer game. I definitely think that you want to have more clean win lines. I mean, I'm not saying Chain of Smog is necessarily the cleanest win line, but it's hard to kind of beat those like A plus B, kind of win conditions. I'm enjoying the extra turn.
You just hope it doesn't get squandered.
So with it having an extra turn, I'm not getting my commander out when I want to get my commander out as often. Playing Grixis Pile with Malcolm. I'm like, I never want to play my commander, even though it would get me advantage over time. I'm like, cool, I'm just going to hold up mana because I have to based on pods. Some people are a little bit more aggressive. Like, I am the only blue person here, and I'm the only person that has free spells, and I know it. So I can't, cool, I'm going to play Malcolm and have one counterspell up. Like, no. I have to have all 2 or 3 counterspells up consistently. Otherwise, the table just ends because, like we've said in the past, you can't win a game if you have no game to play. So I have to make sure that I am going to use that to my advantage. And the longer that I go and the decks with that, if they can go longer, it's going to be better for me against the players that we play in our local meta. I'm gonna make that 10% different choice to be able to give me 50% at the end of the game of a better chance to really be able to capitalize. Some people are like, "Oh, I'm so afraid of Chris." It's like, because I'm making incremental advantages 10% at a time. That's all it takes. 5%, 2%. Is this the right time? Is this the right call? And sometimes I mess up, and everyone does. But
that is a great point to look at. It is that step up. It is that turning point where you get it's the mindset of what CDH is. I'm not to boil it down, but I think that's what you're saying is you understand I'm here to win and I'm going to get it every time. I'm not going to make a move that shoots myself in the foot to help you out real quick because you can stop player two. I'm going to help you out, but I'm also going to I'm also going to step on your shoulder at the same time. You know what I mean? So that's a great way to look. And I'm in your boat. I enjoy. I am in that same. As we kind of slow down, I'm excited to see. Oh, okay. So you just tapped out and burned everything. Okay, I can play one thing, but I have two interaction now, and I'm pretty sure I can stop your free. So no, that's awesome. I appreciate that. We'll jump over to you, Nate. Ask the three questions. How are your games going? Are they going to time? Is it a clear win? And then, are you enjoying that extra turn?
So for my games, I feel like they've been about the same for the most part.
Yeah.
Definitely not as explosive. You feel it. You can tell that a bit of that explosivity is gone, and things are a little bit slower. But as far as like going to time, I'm not going to time more often. There are still people pushing for wins on turns 2, 3, 4. It depending on the decks that you're playing against. I have not seen this like influx of stacks that everyone was considering was going to happen, at least not yet, right? I haven't seen the rule of laws and the TPMs quite yet. Maybe at some point they will be, but not personally yet. Having that extra turns actually really, again, I think it's really beneficial because it allows you to play a certain kind of mind game with people. But before I continue on with that, the other thing that you asked was if wins are clear or not. For anyone who's ever played against me, you both included, I don't let you get away with a convoluted line that you can't fully explain.
Sure.
I will make you play it out. Here's the thing. Typically, I've played enough decks that I can see it. Sometimes even before you guys do, I'm like, yeah, they got it. Like, there's nothing I can do. I can't stop it. Sometimes I mess up and I think about
and you see the players like how they're sitting. I hate to mean it. I'm not trying to say we read the players, but even have anybody down in Salt Lake can attest for this. Like when you know you're sitting next to someone that has nothing, like no interaction, nothing, like a kill spell, nothing, and you realize you see the line, you're like, I have nothing, they have nothing. Can we wrap this up so we can play another one?
Yeah, but I will. If you have a complicated win line, that's fine. I love complicated win lines. I think they're hilariously fun because they're very difficult to interact with. That's why I love Anala's line so much. Just because nobody knows when to interact, and by the time you do, it's too late typically, right? That's fine, but I will make you play it out. So you don't get away with, well, I get there eventually. No, you're going to do it now. Otherwise, I'm going to say that you didn't win. Like, that's what I'll do to you. And it's not that I'm trying to be mean. It's that I want you to understand your lines better. So that way, when I ask, okay, what are you getting now to then win? You can clearly and cleanly tell me. And then I can say, oh, you're right. Sounds good. Let's move on to the next game. I think the only times that I ever didn't see a clear win line, but I just wanted to move on to the next game was mainly Nadu, to be honest. I just was so miserable playing against it. I'm just like, yeah, sure, you got it. Let's move on. But anyway, besides the point.
How many people were like, I just had mana?
yeah, I'm sure they did, but I just didn't want to deal with it, to be honest. That was like the one deck that I was just like, yeah, sure, you got it, you're fine. But as far as having that extra turn and how it's kind of affecting things, I think that certain pieces actually get a higher stock now, and the way that you play can benefit that depending on how you do it.
Okay.
For instance, I actually think that with these bans, things like Emergence Zone and Born Upon a Wind have actually gone up in stock quite a bit. Because we're playing this slower game, people aren't expecting things out of nowhere anymore. People aren't really, at least from what I've been playing and what I've been seeing, that they're not expecting that calling the week into a Born Upon a Wind into an attempted win. Because things are just a little bit slower, right? And I think those have gotten a little bit better, and I've actually been putting them in more decks if I have ways to win at instant speed in the decks.
Yeah.
That could just be me. I'd be interested to hear what other people think about that. I personally think that's the way it goes because sometimes people think that you're holding up interaction, and that's like how you guys were just saying, you'll play a land and you're like, I'm not going to cast my commander because I have to hold up these 2 counter spells. But you could play it the exact opposite, and you go, I don't have any counter spells. I'm going to play it, act as though I have a counter spell, and then when something goes off, I'm going to Born Upon a Win, and I'm going to win instead.
Sure.
No, that makes sense.
So,
and I hate to say, I'm one of those players. I love the instant speed wins. I love you're attempting your win. Well, no, I am.
Magda does that default.
Wait, do you hear something? I don't hear anything like
Magda does that on default. That's why I love it. That's why I love that deck over Taya all day.
Absolutely.
I'm curious, Chris, real quick. When I said that, you seemed to make a face. I'm curious. What was your thought?
Winning on top of the stack. I mean, once again, the meta's still new. I think it was prominent beforehand, and I don't know if it's gone up or down. I don't think it's gone up. I think it's definitely still premium. You want to be able to win on top of someone else. Playing a deck that can win on top of someone else. That's one reason why I like playing green in Malcolm opposed to black. It doesn't appease to me as much. I'm like, cool, I can't, Thassa's Oracle win line on top of someone now. I have to go to combat predominantly, or make infinite mana some way, or Kiki Jiki, or you could play Niv Mizzet, which I'm not a huge fan, maybe in the green version, definitely not in the black with Adnons. We're having more odd win conditions. I mean, just look at the meta that we had when you guys went up there to Salt City. I mean, the meta's, what is that top 10? It is fun. It is fun.
Yeah. It was awesome.
It is fun.
Yeah.
Oh, it's so cool. I love this kind of shit. This is the shit that I live for, man. When I see something, I'm like, I don't know how it wins, but it looks cool as hell.
Yep.
Show me.
Yep.
Show me how I die, please.
Yep.
Because I love people's creativity. That's why I love CEDH to begin with. And that's not, I'm not trying to go off on a tangent here, but like, that's the reason why CEDH is as cool as it is because now I feel like with these bands, there's so much more creativity, because I think there's been so many people online. I could name 1,000, it feels like, but so many people online were like, people lean so much into these explosive starts with Mana Crypt and Jeweled Lotus. They lean so heavy on Dockside to make their win for them that now that they're gone, I feel like at first it maybe felt like people were getting their creativity stunted, but I think it's just done the exact opposite. And I think people are going crazy, and I am here for it. 100%.
No, absolutely. I think it's going to be a fun thing, and that's kind of, you guys both hit it. Like, I'm right in between the both of you. My games, they've been all right. There's been some issues with some players, and it falls in the same as Chris talked about. The interaction needs to kind of step up, and I think that is the two folds, and I guess you guys will get more to this on your casual to CDH, but I think, at least this is my opinion, the step to CDH is knowing to have interaction and knowing the mentality. You Demonic Thassa's turn 1, that's cool, dog, you won. Shuffle up, play again. But that's all it is. It's to the next game. You go to the next. But game-wise, I haven't had any games go to time. Most of my games have had someone get a win, or they've either put it together, or we hit a draw phase. We all hit that, like, draw. Okay, it's done. Try to offer a draw. The person winning says they'll take a draw, but the people who have no interaction says no. And you're like, what are you doing over there? But the last one, I think that extra turn is going to give us more of those diverse games. We're going to get a different meta. We're going to see something unique, and I think that's something cool, and it's something to watch for over the next couple weeks, next couple months. Like, 2025 is going to be a crazy year, I believe. We're going to see what Wizards does with this whole bracket system, which I would love to sit down, the three of us, again, and talk about that. Hopefully, by the time you hear about this episode, maybe we get an idea of what they're going to be, and maybe we can get our own opinions. But, you guys, as we come up on this episode, we're coming up to a little bit of a long one. I got one final question as we wrap up here. Where do you think we're going with the meta? Are we going into a fall, winter, stacksy, control-y, nasty, gross winter? Or are we going to this mid-range, go skiing, then hit the resort, But when you look at your bill, you hit me for 5,000. Yeah, I win the game now. Or hey, who knows? Turbo might just sneak their way out of here. Who knows what new commander is going to get printed soon?
We'll see.
I don't feel like my answer is going to be super helpful to this,
Okay.
but I still think that I need to put it out there. I have literally no idea. And I love that I have no idea. Because I've seen the turbo decks do the turbo thing the way that they've done it before. I have seen people stacks out of board state. I've seen these games. I've played in these games since the bans. I have seen games that are filled with mid-range decks, and everyone goes until 4 or 5 or turn 6, right? It is so all over the place in the best way, honestly, that I have no idea. If I was to take like an educated guess, I would say people are going to try to lean to turbo. That, again, I actually have no idea, and that's just based on turbo always does the turbo thing. And it doesn't necessarily lean on Dockside or Mana Crypt and Jeweled Lotus a lot of the time to win. It's usually other kinds of accelerants.
Yeah, which I think Chris can attest for this. Any 60-card format, when a big ban happens, it's aggro that's on top for at least a minute.
Yep.
It's they get to walk away with it for a minute. And I think you nail it right there on the point, though. I think this is going to be the healthiest we will be in the format since the banning of Flash. As weird as that is to say, I think this is the biggest mix-up we're going to have. And you nailed it on the head. We don't know what we're going to get. But I'm not going to say... I also want to hear Chris's answer, because Chris is so analytical about this stuff. He's going to be like, well, if you look at the numbers, you see Stacks has actually moved up 14%.
Let's take a look at the statistics, Jim.
No, I love looking at numbers and trying to figure it out. And right now, it definitely feels, because the turns are one turn behind, you're playing green, you're playing white, maybe blue. And those are like some of the best colors for interaction plus Stacks. I really like Stacks. Magda was my Blue Moon Stacks deck. It's kind of calmed down from that, and now I'm kind of looking at other things and saying, what else is available? Nate, you said it the other day. Cool, well, why aren't you playing Tayam yet? Tayam relies on its commander. Blood Pod does not rely on its commander. So if I'm going to play a Stacks deck and they Dranth Magistrate me out of the gate, I'm not just sitting there looking around waiting for something. Being able to get your 3 drops, especially getting around Coaling Ritual right now. You want green so you can play your 3 mana spells so they don't get hit by this new sweeper that gives a bunch of people stuff. Look at your guys' meta that you guys, that you went to the other week. The amount of removal in the top 10, top 16 was... The Stacks, the Stacks deck was the only one with multiple pieces of removal, with a lot of pieces of removal, and a lot of those things dealt with their commander. I definitely think Dranth Magistrate, once again, I have to find a deck that can play it. I have to find a deck that can play that. I really believe in Blood Pod right now. I think it's absolutely insane. They've had a lot of different upgrades. It does everything that I want it to do outside of counter stuff. But like I was saying earlier with like the meta, I'm like, I'm done being the police.
Playing police. Okay.
I can play police by playing a 3-mana creature.
We all know you can play with that police with that mustache.
Absolutely. I'll get some shades, boom. But it's another way of playing police is Stacks. Instead of playing blue.
No, absolutely. And I hate to say it, you're one of the few people I admit that can play Stacks in a way that they won't understand. Like people, like you can lock down a board with 3 pieces, and people aren't going to understand how to find the window.
Yeah,
and I just enjoy that. That's just how you play. You're a great player that way. So
yeah, once you are able to lock it down, you need to be able to hold it down. That's one reason why I absolutely love Kinnan. It is a tempo Stacks deck through and through, and people will get all their stuff out, and then they let the game go, and they lose the game. When Kinnan gets ahead, you hold that advantage. So I definitely enjoy Stacks. Once again, board wipes and yada, yada, yada. I don't see too many of, so I think creature-based no effects on the board. cool, get rid of it. Surge of Salvation. I mean, you were talking about earlier the different green spells, Autumn's Veil and things like that. Were like cool. No, hexproof. So I enjoy. I want to try out some different things that increase my political skills. Magda is one of them, and I think Blood Pod might be the other one of just not playing blue and saying, "Cool, good luck casting a bunch of spells in the same turn." And you're gonna be we're all a turn behind, but everyone else is even another turn behind, and that's where you're gonna be able. Cool, I don't need to ramp because you guys are definitely not ramping. Playing,
okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where it's at. I definitely want to try out some stuff. I mean, looking at Rich's deck from the tournament, I want to do something a little bit different. I would like to run a couple more stacks pieces.
Okay, I'm excited to see this. Like it's like you said, you're gonna run it different than most people, and I think you're gonna do great with it. So I'm really excited to see it.
Sure.
Like I just said, like I agree with Nate here. I think this way the meta is we don't know where we're going into, and I am so excited for that because it means we're gonna see these different decks come out. Like shout out to the tournament from Salt City 2 weekends ago. A Dimir deck, yeah. Thassa's Oracle, I don't know if it was in it, but Gale, Waterdeep, Prodigy, and Scion, that isn't a deck you see. Like, what? Or shout out to John been playing Jellybean. It's a deck you see, but like, hey, repping the Jellybean out there. So it's just pretty cool to see, and I'm really excited to see where the meta is going to go. I'm excited to see the Brewer. I think we're in a Brewer's meta, I guess.
Yes.
So,
100%.
But with that, guys, do you have any final statements you guys want to say? Anything you want to put out there as we come to an end?
I just want people to understand that CEDH is so complex, yet so simple. Just try stuff. It's okay. It doesn't have to seem like it's the best thing in the world. Just try to build something to the best of your ability. And I feel like 90% of the time, if you have faith in it, it will perform for you, at least to some degree. Whether it's years from now, you finally get that piece that you need to really make it happen, awesome. Maybe it's not great at the moment, but you still have faith in it somewhere, just go for it. I get really tired of this mentality of don't play that commander, that doesn't work. Don't play that strategy, that doesn't work. Sure, there are times and moments where things don't seem like they work. But maybe you found some way to make it work. Maybe you feel like you have some confidence in something that you know you can make it happen. And you tell yourself that. You're like, I know I can make a mill CEDH deck work. I'm just saying that if you have faith in something and you are a brewer and this is what you love to do it. Because I'm excited to see what you bring. Oh,
absolutely. I can't. You're literally what I'm doing with Dungeons. Like, yeah, the Esper won, but I'm not playing Esper. I'm playing Witch Mob. I'm gonna make Ravos a viable commander.
Perfect. Love it.
But Chris, what about you? You got anything to talk about the folks before we catch them next week?
No, just thank you guys for asking good questions and having good insights. I always learn something new listening to you guys and just really enjoy our time that we can not be in a pod politicking the entire time. We just kind of bullshit for a little bit. It's really enjoyable. So I really appreciate the chill attitude that you both give and appreciate everything that you do for the community.
All right, you guys, thanks for being here. My name's Maddie. I got Chris. I got Nate. Thanks for tuning in. This is Midweek Meta on Turning Point Meta. Please like, please subscribe. And remember, stay confident, but not condescending.